Today's Q&A is about frozen vegetables, and the question is it okay to buy frozen vegetables without hashgacha? So the answer is like this. We know there are certain vegetables that are infested with insects. As a rule, there are ways to check them to make sure they're, we could take a vegetable and do different things to wash it or check it to make sure there are no insects in them. But as a rule, whatever those procedures are tend to not work once the item's been frozen already. And therefore, a person should not buy frozen broccoli, frozen spinach, or things like that, which need to be checked or washed, unless it comes certified as being bug-free. Now, assuming we dealt with that, there's no bugs in the vegetable that I'm looking for, the next concern that we have to think about is additives. Meaning sometimes with the person who's, preparing or packaging these frozen vegetables might add spices or flavors or other kosher sensitive ingredients. If they do, it would be clearly stated on the ingredient panel. And then if that's true, you'd have to avoid it, unless of course it has hashgacha. And I'll just mention that when we talk about additives, salt and citric acid, which are often there, are not considered kosher sensitive for this perspective, for this context, and they're not an issue. Okay, so we've taken care of we're now talking about a vegetable that has no bug issues and there's no additives to it. So our next thing to think about is what I keep saying that you can use it under these conditions is for vegetables that are frozen vegetables that are raw, like corn or peas or carrots or things like that. But sometimes their vegetables are cooked before it's frozen, and that's pretty common with potato products like French fries or potato wedges, which is to say it might look like it's uncooked, but oftentimes it actually is cooked before it's frozen. And one way to know, not the only, but one of the ways to know whether it's cooked or not is to look at the cooking instructions. So, for example, you see potatoes or rice, it's not really vegetable, or rice, and it says you could cook it for 5 minutes or stick it in the microwave for 2 minutes and it'll be ready. Well, then you know that this must have been cooked before in the factory, because there's no way you could cook those foods that quickly. 5 minutes in a pot or 2 minutes in a microwave is not going to cook a potato. So obviously it must have been pre-cooked in the factory, and that raises concerns of bishalakim, which is to say certain foods a Jewish person has to participate in the cooking, so that would be a reason why he needs hashgacha. There also raises questions of maybe the kalim, the equipment, was used for other things that were not kosher. So these kind of things would need hashgacha. Now, so I'm saying that you need to use only the raw vegetables, ones that weren't cooked, but there is a little bit of cooking that actually goes on to just about all frozen vegetables, and it goes through this brief cooking that we call blanching. Blanching means you put the vegetables into really hot water for a couple of minutes, and it releases gases, and that's good for the selling of it and keeping it. So it goes for so short that it doesn't make the food any more edible than it was beforehand, which solves problems of bishalakim. And also, it's done on equipment that tends to be basically that's all it could do is to blanch vegetables, and therefore blanching doesn't pose concern. More serious cooking does, but blanching is not really a cooking, and therefore that's not a concern. However, there is a time when it is a concern, and that is for Pesach. And that is the simple reason why we're more careful for Pesach than the other reason is than as far as other kashrus concerns are, is that certain vegetables like soybeans, or edamames, or corn, peas, and green beans are all kidneys. Well, then you can't eat those. You can't eat those on Pesach. So there's a more obvious problem. But also is that the equipment that's used for blanching could potentially be used to cook pasta also. So there's a chance that your frozen carrots or something else like that was actually absorbed chametz tam while it was being blanched, and therefore there are some hashgachos who say because of this possibility, therefore frozen vegetables for Pesach should be only used with hashgacha, and otherwise they should not be used.